Okay, I'm admitting now.
Oh, there's Carolyn. Hello, mate. You were never going to stand by and watch me struggle here, were you? We should have got you to do this.
Is that one of your colleagues?
Former colleagues.
That's so
Yeah,
good.
yeah. She
Always
took
there
my
to support Steve.
she took my role when I got made redundant.
Oh, that's great. We're just admitting a whole bunch of people, everybody, so we won't be too long. They're all just popping in as we speak.
Are you missing me, Kaz? You just have to nod.
Well, at least 2 days a week I am, yeah.
She's trying to quietly eat her lunch, and you keep making her come off mute with a
Yeah,
full.
yeah, yeah.
I think the bigger question is, do you miss me?
Well, mate, you were infinitely smarter than I am, so yes, I do.
All right, we'll give it one more minute and then we will kick off. So for those people that have joined us, please feel free to make this as interactive as you would like. If at any stage you have any questions, please feel free to come off mute and ask one of our fabulous speakers, or feel free to just pop it into the chat, and we'll be monitoring that as well. And we can ask the question of the speakers if you don't want to come off mute or can't come off mute. Okay, well, I think we might just quickly let that person in. This is the problem when people are trying to rush in from their for their lunch. Okay, well, I think we'll kick off. Are you okay, Sam, Martin, and Steve, if we kick off?
Let's go.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Okay. So welcome everybody to our webinar number 4, our Human Lunch and Learn series. So today we are going to be talking all things unseen, unspoken, and unsafe in regards to psychosocial safety in the workplace. And we have an incredible lineup of speakers today. So before we commence, I'd just like to pay my respects to the lands in which we meet on today, and I'm assuming that there's probably various lands in which we're meeting on today, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So, what I'd like to do is hand over to Sam Young to start with. So, Sam is one of our fabulous human co-founders who is one of our speakers today. So, Sam, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Kristen, or Thelma, as you are known. So I'm a podcaster on Thelma and Louise. I've got lots of hats at the moment. I'm a clinical psychologist and I'm still practicing 1 day a week. I was the founder and owner of Human Psychology, which is Adelaide's largest provider of psychological services, and I sold that to the APM group a couple of years ago and left in February this year and jumped on in to be Chief Health Officer with fabulous Kristen and Martin Campbell with Human. So I'm most excited about, after probably 18 years of trying to make an impact on well-being more at an individual level, that we now have the opportunity to hopefully make an impact on workforce well-being at a more systemic level. So that's me.
Awesome. Thank you. And Steve and Harvey, for those of you that have been in the safety world for a little while, some of you may know, excuse me, of Steve. But what I might do now is welcome you, Steve. Thank you so much for spending this hour with us today, and hand over for you to tell us a little bit about yourself. And obviously, being a comedian, we're pretty lucky to have a safe comedian or an unsafe comedian. I'm not quite sure which one.
Yeah, but I'm not as accomplished as what Sam was. It kind of feels like I'm taking the microphone from George Michael with that introduction there, Sam. That was amazing. But yeah, I've been doing safety for about 20 years now. I'm just about going to my 20 years. I'm very passionate about newer ways to think about safety and move more from that compliance approach to being more human, which is why I'm honored to sort of be in here with you guys and speak to you today. Look, I run the Safety Differently book club, but I call it more the hard hat comedy club, to be honest. We're quite a loose bunch, but I enjoy it, and I'm really passionate about learning. I really love like bringing, you know, being parts of things like this. So, and I'm glad. I hope there's a few people that will learn a lot today, and I'm sure they will.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Martin Campbell's joining us from PNG, which is why he's rocking the high vis in the background with the gorgeous curtain. So he's dialed in and joined us from PNG. So thanks, Martin. So Martin Campbell's the other co-founder of Humn with us today. So welcome to everybody that has joined us, and thank you for spending some time with us on your lunch and learn session. So today is really just talking about how most organizations are really still approaching or even not approaching psychosocial safety in the workplace. And we're hearing quite a bit from a human point of view with clients and potential clients that we're out in the network working with, where the hear no evil, see no evil seems to be a bit of a theme. So we thought we'd have a bit of a play on that one today. And, you know, the statements like, this is just how it's always been done around here. And let's not open that can of worms. So today we're actually going to open that can of worms and we're going to head right in. So, yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, for those that weren't here when we first kicked off, if you do have any questions, please feel free to come off mute or just drop us a question in the chat. We're more than happy to take questions from you. So I'm going to kick off with this first question, and I'm really opening it up actually to both either Sam or Steve. I don't mind which one of you or both could answer. But why do so many psychosocial risks remain invisible in organisations when they are clearly impacting the performance of the teams, the business, and the individuals that are within those teams?
Shall I
Happy for me to
start,
go
Steve?
first?
Yeah, you go, Steve. You go. You
All
go.
right.
Go.
No, thank you. Kristen, for me, I really think we've got a lot of apathy out there. A lot of our workers are fed up telling us that all these problems are in our organisations, and we're not doing anything about it. You know, like we have these behavioural observations, and that are not really picking into some of the sort of deeper rooted issues in our organisations. And I think, honestly, from my own experience, I just kind of think people are just fed up of, you know what, we've tried to tell you, you're not listening, you're not going to do anything. For me, that's what I feel like. We're not listening to the people who are really important. We don't have the mechanisms to bring that information in, I think, because we're concentrating on behavioural observations. I probably think we don't have the appetite. Once somebody's raising issues to us, we probably go, do you know what, that's too hard. And we see this in safety investigations all the time where, well, do you know what, we'll change the procedure because it's too hard to look into the systems and take that systemic lens to it. So yeah, I kind of feel that but from my point of view, I kind of feel like maybe people are we don't have the mechanisms to receive the information. And then if we do receive the information, we're probably not doing much with it.
Yeah, it's quite frightening, isn't it? What are your thoughts on this one, Sam?
I think it's complex, right? But I think psychosocial risks tend to kind of hide in plain sight and then they get misattributed to individual factors. So they get personalized. So I don't know, a team might be accused of having personality clashes, but the underlying cause is actually job design, workload, burnout. It reminded me of a story, what you were saying, Steve. I worked with a mid-sized company, and this is going to sound so trivial, right? But work with me for a minute. The coffee machine broke down,
Mhm.
right? And I don't know about you guys, but like coffee is life. So, this was pretty serious. There's now international roast in the break room rather than the coffee machine.
Oh, good
And
Lord.
like for weeks, people were complaining. It was logged in surveys. Everyone's talking about it in corridors. It was even brought up in team meetings. And the leadership response was silence. So it kind of became bigger than it was. It wasn't about caffeine, though it kind of was. It was a symbol for them of not being listened to. And it became bigger than Ben-Hur. Someone ended up writing on the whiteboard, the coffee machine is our culture, dash broken, right? And so it was finally replaced, but it was too late. And the new machine worked fine, but like trust was broken. And I think it goes to that dismissing small signs to miss the bigger meaning. And people are just sick of being asked. They get surveyed to death. And I don't think people have a problem with surveys at all. They have a problem with being constantly asked the same questions, and it just
Yeah.
goes into the void, and there is no action taken, and no loop closed. So I think, yeah, they're the main. And I guess the other one would be the boiling frog metaphor. So I think just over time, everyone just gets numb and just used to things being the way they are.
Yeah.
Sam, I wonder, you made me think in there too, like just when you talked about the coffee machine. I wonder if this, the three of you guys work with senior leaders, right? I wonder if they actually know that a lot of this is happening down below them. Like, I wonder how much information gets sanitized to them, and they're just not aware of it. And if they did know, they'd be like, "What the hell? Get this stuff fixed. This is easy fixes." I wonder why. I mean, this is a whole different conversation now, isn't it? When you talk about the middle level of leadership.
Mm.
But yeah, I kind of like. I used to always think that the top level leaderships probably had so much to think about in terms of running the organization that they probably I'm reluctant to say didn't care, but maybe had that perception that they it didn't care. But if something went wrong, they were like, "What? Like, we didn't know anything about this." Like, so I kind of wonder if that's how we can get that information better to them. And probably people think the small things don't matter to these senior leaders,
Yeah.
but if it's impacting the culture, then
Yeah, and the
it
small
should
things are
matter.
what bite. The small things are what bites, right? Like,
Yeah.
years and years ago, I remember being asked a question about, or we were in a group and they were asking a question about, has any show of hands anyone who's been bitten by a horse? And I think that was one person. And then show of hands who's been bitten by a dog, and there were a couple more. And then it was a show of hands those that have been bitten by a mozzie, and it was everybody. And so it's the small things that bite. And so we have to actually pay attention to what's going on around us. So I actually think that's a really, really good call out. And what about, I think the flip side of that is employees being too afraid to actually call things out. So, what happens, or what are the risks that arise when staff are either too fatigued to call it out because they've had survey fatigue, or there's actually this whole fear of actually speaking up. So have you got any examples, or, talk to me about what you're sort of seeing in regards to that?
You go first, Dan?
Yeah, thank you. I reckon it's a bit like you get a weird noise when you're driving your car, and I'm pathetically mechanically ungifted and get terrified, and so my tendency is to just ignore it. The little red light, and so you just like la la la, and you hope it'll go away. And what could have been a $200 service ends up being like about $5,000 repair. And I kind of feel it's a bit like this. So I worked with a government agency that they kept getting anonymous survey comments about bullying, and they just ignored them. And within 12 months, there was like workers' comp claims, a regulator investigation, media coverage, because they didn't want to take the short-term pain. So I think that's effectively what happens. Trust erodes, issues escalate, and then, you might get regulator knocking on your door.
Yeah, that's the worst case scenario, right?
As a former mechanic, Kristen, I would tell everybody in this call, please don't ignore the red lights or those
I
noises.
know. I don't. Toxic traits, Dave. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
It's the old
But,
watermelon, like Sam,
yeah,
it's the watermelon, right? You're thinking everything's green when actually it's not red. Yeah,
Nothing to see
yeah.
here.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
and you know what, Kristen, that's a beautiful sort of segue into really what I was going to talk about. You know, we get this all the time, don't we, in organizations like, hey, we're not having any injuries, everything's good. You know, like the metrics are all green, the incidents are lean, the audits are clean, but that doesn't mean you've got a really good organization. Now, this is when I put the pressure on the safety teams. Sorry, as a safety guy, I'm really going to sort of come from my sort of world and let's let's get out. We're basically the conduit between the front lines and those senior leaders. So we need to be listening constantly and asking questions and really see if we can get this information up further the line. And I had in an organization I worked with before, I sort of learned to stop saying we're going to fix this
Mm.
because it was just too hard. It was just too hard. And I started saying, how can we improve it? How can we make it that slightly wee bit better
Yeah.
for the teams? And I think that TV show, the with the football coach, I can't remember the name of it now, but he talks about that where remember he fixes the shower. The shower's just written down, and then he fixes it without any, and then everything starts getting better. I can't remember. It's about the football coach. Ted Lasso, that's it. Yeah. So
Yes.
that's a good one. Just so if you're in that safety space, it's tempting to just go out and talk to people about glasses and gloves and manual handling. Start digging a wee bit deeper into the stuff that really annoys people. You know, like what are these
Oh,
tiny wee things that can make work better for people?
Yeah.
And like, but at least buy your respect because you're asking those better questions.
Yeah, and the really interesting thing is the amount of organizations that do exit surveys or exit interviews, and they actually do nothing with the data. Like I was chatting with a client on the weekend, and I'm like, oh, do you, because they were talking about turnover. Now, for me, turnover is a really big indication that something's problematic, especially if turnover's high. And they were doing exit interviews, but they were literally doing nothing with the data. So you may as well not do the surveys in the first place or the interviews in the first place. It's a waste of everybody's time.
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, it's a really interesting thing. So how do we get leaders, or how do we design systems to be able to really hear what's going on? Because we've got to create an opportunity for people to feel safe, obviously to speak up. But then we need to also have a way of getting that data and bringing that back to, like, as a board member myself, I'm all over the data. So what do we need to do as leaders to design these systems that actually do work, that can be reported to help us?
Mate, oh, thank you, Sam. Um, Kristen, I was reading about Jeff Bezos the other day. Whether you love him or love him or whatever you think about him, he had this great story about the anecdotes and the data. And if the data is telling a different story, then I believe the anecdotes. And I think he had a board meeting, and the guy on the board was going, "Oh no, everything's good. The call center time, it's 30 seconds." And then Jeff Bezos actually called up the call center, and it took longer. So he sort of said that anecdotes are better than the data,
Mm,
which I really loved. But I think a lot of times what happens too is even when we've got the mechanisms to collect the data, we put them in boxes, don't we? Like we have these drop downs all the time, and I kind of think that we don't collect the stories that well.
mhm.
Hopefully, in time, with the introduction of AI and the ability to theme this up really, really quick and understand it, then we'll get better. I know that I'm doing that now. Like I'm collecting the data and turning it into stories, and I can share it wider. But yeah, I still kind of think I again happy to lean on your experience in this stuff. I still think some of these safety management systems don't allow for storytelling. They just allow for drop boxes, and then that means we're not getting a true picture of what's happening.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I feel. I'd be keen to hear what you're thinking of, Sam.
I almost feel sometimes they're a bit of a smokescreen or a panacea. And I kind of wanted to take a step back and look at, because I'm a psychologist, right? What is the leadership psychology that are the barriers to this stuff? Like, why aren't we getting traction? So many safety people were screaming into the void, and it's just not getting the traction at that senior exec board level. So I think some of the blind spots that cause inadvertently, unintentionally harm that I've seen frequently of late. I'm going to call it the halo effect. So leadership assume top performers who are delivering on technical results or long tenured staff can't be causing harm. Yeah, when in fact they actually are. And this idea of data worship, I think, is what you're talking about, Steve. So focusing on metrics and not always the right metrics without understanding context or the lived experience of the people on the front line. So I think, beyond blue data is that 50% of senior leaders in Australia acknowledge that mental health issues, occur, but don't believe that they'll occur in their workplace. So, I mean, it's this profound disconnect. Survivor bias is listening only to those that stay and ignoring the reasons people leave, which is to your point, Kristen. And the one that really does my head in, because I lived it for 15 years, is delegated empathy. I love this term. So that's assuming HR and EAP will pick up on issues because leaders don't have to. It's like this big hot potato, and anything difficult, emotional, psychological, handball, delegated. Recency bias, so remembering only recent incidents and dismissing long-term trends. I think a lot of leaders have a savior mindset or a crisis mindset, so they only step in during crises instead of addressing systematic issues early. And then over relying on resilience. So that word actually I'm starting to hate. So weaponizing resilience and expecting individuals to cope instead of addressing the core issues. So they're kind of the main leadership blind spots, I think, that get in the way. But definitely this idea of data worship, but it's not actually information, it's just data.
Yeah, and data should be used to point us in a direction, right? It shouldn't be used as gospel. It should just be enough to point us in the right direction and guide us. Can we get Roxanne? Can you put yourself on mute a wee bit? Like I'm getting a lot of. Oh, thank you, mate.
I thought it was your background, Steve. I thought you were having a party in the background.
No, not at all. I'm in a room with white walls.
And let's just stay on that data thing. Just before everybody joined us earlier, we were talking about the signs that we see in some businesses to the number of days that they've had between when they had an injury and like the last injury. Do you want to maybe just talk a little bit about that? Because I actually think that was a really interesting discussion we were having just before everybody joined us.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my views on these things. So when I worked in a labour hire company, so my job was to go on site and assess suitability for host employment. And if I went to an organisation and they had any of these safety slogans like safety first, safety is our number one priority, or even worse, those numbers that celebrate, supposed to celebrate good practice, then I would work harder and I would grill them. And I actually went to a place where I said, I'm actually, the story went like this, guys. I said to the team, get me a drill, I'm taking this off the wall. And they went, oh, no, well, you need a GSA to do that. And I was like, what? It's like, get me a screwdriver. And I'm taking it off. So every time I visited a site, I was like, get that off the wall because it's just promoting bad practice. And some of the teams would go, yeah, we know that. But I went to one that had basically 18,000 days without an injury. But the team were really proud of that. They were really, really like, oh, they were really proud that we haven't had an injury in 42 years. But when we start to have that conversation with them and say, hey, are you going to be the person that takes that back? And obviously every single one of them were like, no. So I kind of thought that these things were disappearing, but I don't think they are, Kristen. I still think that organizations still use them as a way to thinking that they're improving, or I call it like the safety blanket, like, oh, look at us, we care about safety. We've had like 1,000 days without an injury. Let's have a pizza party. But yeah, really, really, really bad practice, everybody. And if you do have these things on your front door, reach out to me or anybody that's involved with stuff.
Steve's got a screwdriver.
Hey, I've got a screwdriver and a drill that we can take them off with. But there is so much research out there about why these are really terrible, terrible things to have up there. So thankfully, I think we're moving on, but it's taking our time.
Yeah. So I want to talk about language traps here, and I love this. So what language traps or word salads are making psychosocial risk harder to manage in the workplace? Sam, I'm going to hand this one to you.
Yeah. I think language matters, right? Words matter. And I think there's a tendency for leaders to hide behind what I'll call clinical jargon or word salad. So, instead of actually naming it for what it is, they'll use things like resilience gap, yeah, which means we're burning our people out. Workforce optimization is popular at the moment, which means we're terminating a bunch of people. Emotional leakage, I heard the other day, which, I might say what? Interpersonal conflict as code for bullying, and I get asked to do conflict resolution or mediations quite frequently. And there was one recently where they wanted me to do a mediation, and the individual, the alleged perpetrator, was literally bailing people up in the corridor and screaming in their faces, like spit, coming out, and sending these horrific abusive emails. But they thought we should mediate that because it was an interpersonal conflict. So there's this kind of hesitance to name things, euphemisms, rather than calling it what it actually is: overwork, bullying, harassment. Or, the classic one I know, Kristen, we've seen recently is repeated yelling incidents being called "they're just passionate."
Or this
Yeah.
this is just them. Like this is
Yeah,
the
it's
way
just
they
them.
are.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And that turns harm though into something acceptable, and normalized. So, and then the other one, I think the language trap is this virtue signaling well-being. So the no more cupcakes thing that, I get furious about. So tokenism, handing out stress balls rather than actually dealing with the hard stuff, which is changing how we work and how we treat people.
Yeah, and the fruit box doesn't solve everything for those businesses that have got the beautiful fruit salad box sitting on the bench, just rotting away.
No one eats the apples, right?
No, they don't. Definitely don't. And the bananas start to smell, by the way, after a couple of days. They're a bit gross too.
But it's really just hiding behind jargon for our own comfort.
Yeah,
So
totally.
we're shielding ourselves from discomfort and then denying the reality of harm, and that's not okay.
Yeah. Thoughts, Steve?
As someone who was promoted outwards in my last role, made redundant.
Seeking excellence elsewhere, Steve.
Yeah, totally. I could not agree with you more. That's just and from in my world, the safety world, like I always listen out, and I will call it out too if I hear people unfortunately you still hear it, like people going, "Oh, they were an idiot," or "I would have done this," or "They could have done this instead," or "They should have, would have, could have." Like I will call that stuff out, and I would challenge anybody on the call to have a go at that too. If you hear people being treated disrespectfully because they made a mistake, be that soft place to land for them.
Yeah.
So I would say this to my team, like with the team I'm working with just now. I said to them, I don't really care what we might never be able to change anything in this organization. It might be so hard to change that we might never get anything done. But what we can do is we can be that place that when something goes wrong, and it's not if, when something goes wrong, that you're right there in the boots of the workers. And you know what? You just make them feel better. And Kristen, everybody that I spoke to in the month that I've been here, they're like, we really appreciate that. And I'm like, and I said it to the team, this will get you more respect than anything else. So call out the bad language. Definitely, like language is so critical, I think. And it's something that I'm really trying to be mindful of myself when I'm communicating my thoughts.
Yeah.
But have you ever seen those two comedians that do they've got like a book out just now where they talk like they use all the business jargon and they take the mickey with it. You should have a look at it. It's a really, really
You
cool
have to send us
little
a
book.
link and we'll send it out to everybody, all of the
Yeah.
people that have dialed in.
Yeah.
Send us a link and we'll share it. So
yeah, they've basically got full shows. Sorry, there you go.
Yeah, so obviously on the screen for those that can see, there's a comment there around leaders rely on open door policies that no one trusts, which is actually so true. I don't know of too many leaders that I've worked with that have had a good open door policy because you wouldn't trust them. And so what does good leadership look like when it's willing to see, hear, and act, especially when they're under pressure? Because all roads do come down to we've got to get better leaders. So what does it look like when they're willing to see, hear, and to act?
You want to go, Sam? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think having a genuine desire to listen with empathy and understand their experience. I think leaders talk too much, and maybe that's
Mm.
because we feel we need to be the expert, but then actually be prepared to change things. So, actually asking, what am I missing? And then acting on what they hear, protecting and recognizing when people speak up and seeing that as a sign of great safety culture. Um, an example might be actually, I heard of a company that were doing quarterly "What Am I Missing" lunches with senior execs, and they'd lob into the different sites and have lunch with frontline staff. So, no agenda, literally just talk to me. And obviously, then picked up early warning signs. I heard about a senior exec who logged into a healthcare site, and in this particular setting, unfortunately, lots of drug and alcohol affected clients, and it's very routine for furniture to be thrown around and threats and violence and aggression. And this senior executive was absolutely horrified. And he said, "Well, why haven't you requisitioned, a Perspex safety screen?" And this fabulous frontline worker has just slapped down the 4 requests she'd made. And I think the installation cost was like a couple of grand, and said, "Well, there they are." And he made sure that they were installed, literally that week. So I think it's about um, I guess our time and money follow our priorities. And I think too often we make the excuse we're too busy to do these things. And at the end of the day, I think our job as senior leaders, what's more important? Actually getting out there and saying to people what's hard about doing your job. Um, I had a great conversation with a medical director who was heading up emergency, and they used to lob in at 2 a.m. on a Saturday just to see what was happening. And wow, a lot happens at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night in an ED. So I think it's curious empathy, genuine listening, um, and then actually acting on what you're hearing. They're my 3.
Yeah, great. Steve, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm totally disconnected. Like curiosity is one of my highest values, and I really try and like say to the leaders of organizations that I work with, like just try and understand the pain that they're feeling. If something's going, particularly if something goes wrong, don't be. We're so quick to judge, and you actually have to train yourself not to judge. And I would say to the leaders, like, just ask that question. I wonder how that made sense for them to do that. And it just allows you to slow down a little bit and think through it. So I wonder how that made sense for them to do that. So you sort of was chatting, like I said earlier, I kind of feel it really is up to the leaders to search that news out because it's not coming up to them. For whatever reason, it's just not coming up to them. And you talk about that open door policy. Unfortunately, senior leaders have to get out that door and go and ask the questions themselves. And we really, well, again, I kind of feel that we have to build time into the calendars of these teams. And even if they just get a little insight into what's happening, it should be enough to go, hey, do you know what? I heard this a couple of times from our teams in the warehouse. Is that something that's impacting other areas? Can you go and find out for us? And even like when we're doing the reporting, something I feel quite strong about is we just see numbers. I want these narratives. I want stories from the field. I want to be able to see, what is actually happening out there. Capture the voice of experience, I call it, the people who are really doing the work. So yeah, so I think get up and get out and go and have a look.
Yeah.
Don't
It's interesting, isn't it? Like when I was a leader back in the day, I used to do manager once removes every quarter. And that was a really great way of giving people time with me that I would not normally have reporting into me. And it was incredible, some of the things that were being filtered. And there's a comment in here from Martin around a great way to remove the filters is to get on the floor and speak with people about the work is done, not how work is imagined. And I think that's a really good call out because if you're doing these manager once removes or even manager twice removed, you will actually start to hear about some of the things that are bubbling away that have been filtered. So it's a really great way of being able to hear what's going on.
Can I chuck in some more, Kristen? So, got a sort of practical strategies. So, heat maps. So triangulation and overlaying different data sources. So not just your engagement survey, because you can actually have high engagement scores in a toxic culture.
Yeah.
So EAP data, survey data, turnover, absenteeism, then the qualitative feedback piece to give you triangulated data, so it can then point to heat maps. Rather than just exit interviews, I love the stay interviews. Why do you stay?
Yeah.
What's going to keep you here? What are the current pain points that we need to fix? And then real-time hazard reporting, not just physical ones, for psychosocial risk.
Yeah.
So we're actually treating psychosocial risk exactly the same way as physical risk.
Yeah, great.
I love that. I love that. Actually, and this is where I'm going to call out the safety teams and the HR teams as well. We're quite lucky in a way because we get exposure to across the whole organization, and it's really important that we build that trust and empathy with people who are doing the work. And if we've got a good relationship with our senior leaders, we can probably start to share that work. So.
Yeah. Exactly.
That
I'm
was
going
brilliant.
to open it up to the floor. If anyone has any questions at all, please feel free to come off mute if you'd like to ask us a question, or feel free to drop it into the chat. We're only too happy to answer them for you. So while everybody's thinking about that, I'll ask a question and then we'll move on to whoever pops their hand up or comes off mute. So how can humor, storytelling, or real talk help cut through the avoidance and build safety in a business? I'm going to start with you on this one, Steve, given that this is your...
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I can actually tell you the story of how it really happened for me. Like being a Glaswegian, I think we're naturally funny, right? We have like a way about us, a way of the world. But I had just finished my degree at Griffith, and I was looking to study something else. So I thought human factors, psychology, or marketing. That's kind of the way that I was going. And then I saw I think it was on Facebook, there was a stand-up comedy course, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to give that a crack. And honestly, it's been the best thing that I've ever done. Now, anybody can be funny, even Martin Campbell. I know that's hard, right? But anybody can be funny. And it's just a case of studying some of the ways. Like I do a lot of reading. I'm pretty well read in this stuff. And once something captures my imagination, I really get stuck in it. And for me, the big thing about comedy, Kristen, is it makes people feel seen and heard. So whenever I'm delivering my toolbox talks, I always try and make sure I invite people in. I always make sure that I can see them and I can hear them. And it really does build trust quickly. And people will share with you and people go, that was fun, like you have this different way about you when communicating safety, that you're pretty unusual. I kind of take that as a compliment when people say I'm an unusual safety guy. But yeah, like you saw, I would really, and I say this all the time, when I speak at conferences, I'm normally try and be funny. I try and throw a bit of humour in, and then somebody will come up after you and you're just like flat. So if I could urge you all, if you get the opportunity, read some books, throw a bit of comedy in, use the rule of three, try and use comedy even in your messaging that you give to people. And people will notice, people will come up to you and say, oh, that was different, or that was fun, or hey, that was a good way of delivering that message. So for me, it's had a massive impact, and so much. Like I could never imagine what a 6-week course would do for my professional practice.
That's really interesting. Thank you. Sam, thoughts?
I guess I was thinking about real talk rather than humor, because I'm not as funny, obviously, as Steve or Martin. But why we avoid having, there's still that label risky conversations, isn't there? And, it's something we're hearing even more now because of the legislation, the psychosocial safety legislation. Managers are saying, well, I'm absolutely not going to talk about this stuff now. I'm too scared. Even though not talking about it makes you more...
Oh,
Oh, we've lost her. We've lost her.
I would just go to what the Sam was saying. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, your survival brain kicks in. My internet connection's apparently unstable, so that's fantastic. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, got you back.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Frozen.
So I think
into a robot. So yeah,
leaders need to be aware of when their fight flight kicks in. You can feel it, right? And basically we lose our mind when that happens. How do you downshift that stress response to let you be present and empathetic and actively listen in a conversation. Because I think a lot of the time we fear retaliation, we fear damaging relationships. And so we end up just saying, oh, look, hopefully it'll settle on its own, or hopefully they'll just sort it out. But, this avoidance, I guess we mistake harmony for silence. And
Mm.
my urge is that people start having real conversations using plain language and put aside the fear, because the fear is about protecting ourselves in actual fact, not the other person.
And silence can actually be a really good indicator of that there's actually real stuff going on, right? Like we know of an organization that had a 6% response rate to a psychosocial safety survey. And when you're getting poor responses in regards to surveys, don't just assume it's survey fatigue, because quite often it can be that people are too fearful to answer those questions or respond to the surveys because they're terrified that there is some way that they're being tracked and they'll be able to be identified as well. So silence can be a bit of a killer sometimes, unfortunately. Yeah.
Poor response is a response.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been saying to the team. Whenever I get involved with these safety surveys and they're like really, really low, I'm like, we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So what have you got here? Humor Seriously is a great corporate book. Thank you. And somebody
Yeah.
else just popped into the chat, the Sapole road safety ads have incorporated comedy with great success. So they were talking about the Grim Reaper ads and how it's helped messaging stick with people. Like we all can remember those ads. And I think they've actually just rolled them back in and have started using them again. Does anyone
It's so Australian, isn't it? Right? If I think about, like, I've got a paramedic in my family and I work with a lot of first responders, and that fantastic black humor, it actually is a coping mechanism and a bonding mechanism. So obviously it needs to be appropriate, like,
Absolutely.
not tipping into unprofessional. But yeah, I think we can take ourselves far too seriously sometimes. And, maybe we need to lighten up a bit and have a bit more fun at work, rather than being so serious about things all the time.
Yeah, there's plenty of memes about it, isn't there?
Yeah, I concur, Stan. Yeah, like there is lots we can talk about using humor and fun, but obviously there is a time and a place when you need to sort of wind it back a wee bit. But
Yeah.
sometimes I think like the way that I introduce fun, and it does allow me to open up for deeper conversations about stuff.
Yeah.
But
Does
Yeah.
anyone have any questions? We're heading into a time where we just about need to finish it up. So I'm happy to really open it up if anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask Sam or Steve while we have them on the line. Nope. Okay, well, we are at the end of this session. That 45 minutes has gone so quickly. So from here, what we will do is we will share this out in a live, sorry, not a live, in a YouTube link. We'll have the recording out to you in an email. Sam will be sending that through for you all in the next day or two. As soon as we can actually get it formatted and downloaded for you, we'll send it all through. In the meantime, if any of you have any questions or want to reach out to us with anything that you would like to hear about in any of our upcoming webinars, we're really open to ideas and thoughts and suggestions on things that you might think would help you all. Please feel free to drop us a note at hello@human.global, humans with no A. We're really keen to make sure that we're keeping the content up to what you are all really needing to hear and see. And then just up on the screen, Sam's just shared also on the screen that we've got our Human Movement membership, so you can scan the QR code if you wanted to join as an individual or a corporate. And we also do have monthly payment options if that's something that you would be interested in as well. Feel free, we can send that through for you. And it is also on our website if you want to get access to that, which is www.human.global. Anyway, thank you on behalf of all of us. Thanks, Steve, for coming on board and spending your lunchtime with us. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Sam. And thank you, Martin, for jumping in and all the way from PNG. And thank you to everybody else. Have a fabulous rest of the week and feel free to open up and start sharing your stuff with your people. Thank you.
See you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.